6 consecutive double-doubles.
We're blue-collar workers.
He has played the entire game.
Going to be what's going to happen.
He's the best ever is not something Charles Oakley would say about just anybody. And when you understand who Charles Oakley actually was, that statement hits differently. This is not a man who handed out flowers. This is not a man who clapped for effort. This is not a man who smiled and nodded when someone had a nice game. Oakley was the kind of player who made the NBA uncomfortable just by walking into the building. He played 19 seasons. He finished with 1,282 games played. He grabbed 12,205 rebounds. He fought, he bled, he protected, he demanded. And in all that time, across all those seasons, with all those rosters and all those locker rooms, the list of players he truly respected could fit on one page, a short page. That is what makes this list matter. Oakley did not respect most people. He criticized stars. He challenged legends. He questioned teammates people loved and icons people worshipped. He did not care what the crowd thought. He did not care what the media said. He had his own code, and that code was harder to pass than any combine test in the history of professional basketball. So if you already know how rare real respect was in Oakley's world, use the hype feature and give this video some hype, because this list is not about fame. It is about who survived the old NBA test, and very few people did. Now, before we get into the 7 players, you have to understand the man doing the judging, because Oakley's approval meant nothing if you did not know who was approving you. Charles Oakley came from Cleveland. He went to John Hay High School. He then went to Virginia Union University, where he was named the 1985 NCAA Division II Player of the Year. He averaged 24, 3 points and 17, 3 rebounds per game at that level. He was not a project. He was not a developmental piece. He came into the NBA already knowing who he was and what he was there to do. The Chicago Bulls drafted him 9th overall in 1985, and from the first day he walked into that building, he made it clear that soft play was not going to happen near him. His statistical record tells part of the story. With the Bulls in 298 games, he averaged over 10 points and over 10 rebounds per game. With the Knicks across 727 games, he kept that same consistency. Over 10 points, over 10 rebounds. More than 33 minutes per night. Every night. For a decade. He then went to Toronto, played 210 games, and kept producing at a high level even in his mid-30s. The man did not have off nights. He did not coast. He did not accept bad practices or soft attitudes. That standard applied to himself first, and then to everyone around him. His philosophy of respect was simple but brutal. Two-way play, physical courage, loyalty to teammates. Role discipline, the willingness to accept pain and not complain about it. The ability to be coached hard without folding. He did not care about your scoring average if you disappeared in the fourth quarter. He did not care about your awards if you could not guard someone on the other end. He did not care about your reputation if you were not willing to take a hit to help your team. He did not care if the whole world loved you, if he did not see you do the things he believed mattered. Oakley was playing in a different arena from the one most people watched. He was not watching the highlights. He was watching the moments in between. The screen that did not get set. The defensive assignment that got abandoned early. The loose ball that nobody dove for. The timeout when a player sat down and looked at the floor instead of looking at his teammates. These were the moments Oakley was watching, and most players failed them constantly without ever knowing they were being graded. This is why some very famous names did not make his list. He criticized Patrick Ewing for a lack of physical leadership in critical moments. He had a long-running dispute with Charles Barkley, questioning Barkley's defensive commitment and his choice to join a loaded Houston Rockets team late in his career. He even dismissed the historical consensus around Bill Russell, arguing that 11 championships built alongside multiple Hall of Fame teammates did not prove individual greatness the way many people assumed. For Oakley, you had to impact the game on both ends. By yourself, with no excuses. That is the filter. That is the standard. 7 players passed it, and today we count them down in reverse order. Starting from the bottom of the list and working our way to the top. Starting from the most surprising name and working toward the most defining one. Every single player on this list reveals a different piece of Oakley's code. And by the time you hear them all, you will understand why his respect was worth earning. Number 7. Tim McCormick. If you do not know Tim McCormick's name, that is part of the point. He was not a superstar. He was not a household name. He was not the kind of player people put on posters or argued about on television. He was a veteran big man, a center who played the 1992-1993 season as Oakley's teammate on the New York Knicks. And somehow, Tim McCormick ended up on Charles Oakley's short list of most respected players in the NBA. How? That is the story. And the story starts with silence. When McCormick arrived in New York that season, Oakley did not speak to him. Not a word. Not in the locker room. Not in the hallway. Not in practice. Months went by. McCormick showed up, did his work, tried to prove himself, and got nothing back from Oakley. No acknowledgement, no greeting, no conversation, just silence. And that silence was a test, even if McCormick did not know it at the time. Oakley did this because passivity was a liability to him. A player who could absorb silence without breaking, without running to a coach to complain, without checking out mentally, that player had something. Oakley had seen what happened to players who needed constant validation. They became unreliable. They became players you could not trust in tight games. They became the person in the locker room who took up space without adding to the foundation. But showing you could handle silence was only the first part. The second part required something more direct. The tension broke during a heated practice scrimmage. Oakley was physical. He was always physical. He was aggressive in practice the way most players are only aggressive in playoff games. And McCormick had taken enough. Frustrated by Oakley's physical play, McCormick snapped. He struck Oakley in the face. Let that land for a second. A player hit Charles Oakley, in practice, on the New York Knicks, a team where Oakley was the undisputed enforcer, the alpha, the man who had protected Michael Jordan himself in Chicago. McCormick hit him, and Oakley smiled. He did not retaliate. He did not escalate. He smiled, extended his hand, shook McCormick's hand, and from that day forward, he spoke to him regularly. He brought McCormick into his circle. He treated him like a teammate worthy of his time and his trust. McCormick later said something that captures the whole story in one line. He said Oakley never really respected him until he hit him. That is the code in its purest form. Oakley did not need you to be talented to earn his respect. He did not need you to be famous. He did not need you to be a star. He needed you to have courage. He needed to know that when things got physical, when pressure built and breaking was an option, you would not break. You would push back. To most people in the world, a punch ends a relationship. To Charles Oakley, a punch started one. This is why McCormick belongs on this list. Not because of what he averaged or what he won, but because he showed Oakley the one thing Oakley could not teach and could not fake. He showed him he would fight. Number 6. Kevin Durant. Now the list shifts. From a player no one expected to a player everyone knows. But the reason Kevin Durant earned Oakley's respect is just as surprising. Because by every external measure, Durant and Oakley should not have connected. They play completely different styles of basketball. Oakley was a bruiser, a rebounder, a physical interior presence. Durant is a 7-foot scoring machine who can shoot over almost anyone alive. Oakley came from an era where defense was a cultural requirement. Durant plays in an era that celebrates offensive output above almost everything else. And yet Oakley respected him, clearly, specifically, without hesitation. The reason comes back to the code. Oakley often criticized modern NBA players for a lack of role discipline and physical toughness. He did not always like what he saw in the new generation. Players who understood their role on paper but did not live it out on the court. Players who had talent but chased individual glory at the expense of team structure. Players who could not handle adversity without making it public. Players who needed everything to be going perfectly before they were willing to give everything. That pattern bothered Oakley deeply, because it was the opposite of how he had approached every single season of his career. Durant was the exception. Oakley praised Durant for his deep understanding of his responsibilities on the court. Not just what Durant could do with the ball, but what Durant understood about how his skills fit into a team system. Oakley cited him alongside LeBron James as one of the modern players who truly understands what it takes to win. That is not a small compliment from a man who does not give small compliments. What Oakley saw in Durant was efficiency without selfishness. Durant could score in any offensive system. He could get his points whether the team needed him to create or whether the team needed him to move without the ball. He adapted. He submitted to the system when the system required it. And he did all of this under enormous media pressure, through team changes, through public controversy, without letting the noise destroy his focus on court. Oakley understood that kind of focus. It reminded him of the internal discipline he had required from himself and from the players around him across his 19 seasons. You do not have to be a bruiser to understand discipline. You do not have to average 10 rebounds to understand your role. Durant scored at will and still understood that winning was bigger than his stats. That is a very specific kind of intelligence. Oakley recognized it. Durant did not fit the old enforcer image. He did not protect teammates with his fists or intimidate opponents with his size, but he fit Oakley's deeper rule. Know your job, do it well, put the team first, and do not let the outside world pull you away from what you are supposed to do. In Oakley's world, that is enough to earn a spot on the list. Number 5. Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant never played with Charles Oakley. He was on the other side. He was an opponent, a competitor, someone Oakley watched from across the court rather than beside in the locker room. And that makes Oakley's respect for him even more revealing. Because Oakley's bar for opponents was higher than his bar for anyone else. A teammate got to prove himself through shared work, through daily practice, through moments of trust built over time. An opponent only got to prove himself in the moments Oakley was trying to stop him. And if you could still earn Oakley's respect while he was actively trying to make you fail, you had done something remarkable. Kobe earned it. Oakley's respect for Bryant was rooted in one word: competitiveness. Not just the will to win, because many players have the will to win when things are going well. Kobe had the will to win when things were falling apart. He had the will to win when he was tired, when he was hurt, when the crowd was against him, when the roster around him was not good enough. He competed through all of it. And he competed with a ferocity that Oakley recognized because it reminded him of the one player Oakley respected above almost anyone else. Oakley saw Kobe's drive as a direct reflection of Michael Jordan's approach. That comparison is not something Oakley made lightly. Jordan was not a reference point Oakley used loosely. Jordan was the standard. And to say Kobe reflected that standard was to say Kobe operated at a level most players in NBA history never touched. In historical debates, Oakley ranked Kobe Bryant ahead of Magic Johnson. He highlighted Bryant's elite two-way play, his scoring range, and his refusal to back down from physical matchups. That last part is critical when you understand who is doing the judging. Oakley's world was built on refusing to back down. It was the core of everything he valued, and Kobe refused to back down from anyone, under any circumstances, at any point in his career. Oakley disliked soft play, he disliked passive players. He disliked anyone who disappeared when the game got hard. Kobe was the opposite of all of that. Kobe got louder when the game got hard. He got more aggressive. He became more difficult to guard and more dangerous to challenge. His focus sharpened under pressure instead of fading. Kobe also brought the defensive commitment that Oakley required. This was not just a scorer who happened to play defense sometimes. Kobe invested in defense the way great defenders do. He studied opponents. He guarded the best player on the other team. He took pride in stopping people, not just in scoring on them. For Oakley, that combination was rare, especially in someone who had already become a legend. Most players at Kobe's level could have relaxed on defense, and no one would have blamed them. Kobe never relaxed. Oakley respected Kobe because Kobe played like he was always trying to prove something, even when he had nothing left to prove. That kind of internal fire was not something a player could manufacture. Either you had it or you did not. Kobe had it in a way that only a very small number of players in the history of the game ever truly had it. Oakley recognized that, and he gave Kobe the only thing Oakley ever gave freely, which was his honest, unfiltered word that this player was the real thing. Number 4. Tracy McGrady. Tracy McGrady came into the NBA young, very young. He came in with long arms, a smooth release, an ability to score at all three levels that most players spend their entire careers trying to develop, and a reputation that arrived before his game had fully caught up to it. He was going to be great. Everyone knew it. The question was how and when. Charles Oakley became part of that answer. When Oakley joined the Toronto Raptors in 1998, the team was young and talented and needed a veteran who could provide the kind of physical foundation that allowed skill players to grow. McGrady was one of those skill players, a young, slender wing scorer who had all the tools to become elite, but who was playing in an NBA that was not gentle. The late 1990s NBA was physical. Defenses could make contact. Big men could punish drives. Opposing players would test a young scorer early and often to see what he was made of. Oakley understood that environment better than almost anyone alive because he had been one of the people creating that environment for other teams. He knew exactly what happened to young, thin scorers who tried to attack without interior protection. They got beaten up, they got frustrated, they stopped attacking, and then their development slowed, sometimes permanently. He made sure that did not happen to McGrady. By setting hard screens, securing rebounds, and physically protecting McGrady from retaliation after big plays, Oakley gave him something that cannot be measured in a box score. He gave him space. He gave him the safety to attack the basket and know that if someone tried to send a message, a reply would come. Oakley respected McGrady's scoring ceiling. He saw a player with the potential to be one of the most gifted offensive players the league had seen. But he also understood that potential had to be developed inside a structure. McGrady had to learn how to survive the physical nature of professional basketball before his talent could fully emerge. What Oakley valued most was not McGrady's highlight plays, it was McGrady's willingness to accept hard coaching. He listened. He did not push back with his ego. He did not act like a player who had already arrived. He understood that the veterans around him had information he needed, and he was humble enough to take it in. That willingness to be coached by Oakley meant something. Many young players with McGrady's gifts would have assumed the talent was enough. McGrady treated the veteran presence around him as a resource instead of a challenge to his status. Oakley respected that. He respected the work ethic, he respected the acceptance of structure, and he respected the way McGrady developed under pressure into one of the most dangerous scorers in the game. McGrady did not earn Oakley's respect by doing something dramatic. He earned it by showing up every day, doing the work, accepting the coaching, and growing into the player Oakley believed he could become. Number 3. Vince Carter. There is a moment in the early career of Vince Carter that tells you everything about how Charles Oakley saw the world and what he required from the players he mentored. Carter was a rookie. He was already electric. He could do things above the rim that made arenas lose their minds. He had one of the most natural athletic gifts the NBA had ever seen. His vertical, his body control, his ability to hang in the air past the point where most humans would have already fallen back to earth. Vince Carter was a spectacle, and he knew it, and audiences loved him for it. But during an early regular season game, Oakley watched Carter settle into his perimeter game. Carter was taking jump shots. He was comfortable out there. He was getting looks and not always attacking, and Oakley grew frustrated. Because Oakley saw what Carter could not fully see yet. No defender in the league could stop Carter if he drove to the basket. The jump shot was fine, but the drive was unstoppable. So Oakley grabbed him during a timeout. Not gently, not with a quiet suggestion. He grabbed him and told him directly, "Drive to the basket. No one can stop you when you attack the rim. That is where your advantage lives. Stop settling for comfortable." Carter listened. That moment, that timeout conversation, that demand from a veteran enforcer who had seen 19 seasons of basketball and knew exactly what the game required, helped unlock something in Vince Carter. It helped him understand that athletic gifts were only powerful when used aggressively, that settling for the easy shot was a waste of everything he could do when he fully committed to the attack. Carter's rim attacking style developed in part because Oakley demanded it, because someone told him clearly and without apology that he was not using his gift the right way. Oakley respected Carter's athletic ability from the beginning. You could not watch Carter play and not respect what he could do physically. But Oakley respected him more after Carter started using that ability with force. After Carter started attacking instead of settling. After Carter accepted the push and grew from it. This is tough love mentorship in its most direct form. Oakley was not trying to be Carter's friend in that moment. He was trying to make Carter better. He was treating him the way he himself had always been treated. The way he believed all serious players should be treated. With honesty, with high expectations, with the refusal to accept less than what the player was actually capable of. Carter did not resent it. Even after Oakley's time in Toronto ended in difficult circumstances, Carter maintained his respect for what Oakley had given him. He understood that the push was a gift, that the hard conversation was worth more than a soft one would have been. The demand to be better was a form of belief. Oakley would not have grabbed Carter during that timeout if he did not believe Carter had something worth pushing toward. Indifference would have been the real insult. The fact that Oakley cared enough to be direct was the highest compliment Carter could have received from a man who did not waste words. Oakley respected Carter because Carter had the gift, accepted the demand, and became something more dangerous because of it. Number 2. LeBron James. The story of Charles Oakley and LeBron James begins before most people ever heard LeBron James's name. It begins in Ohio when LeBron was 16 years old. Not a drafted player, not a professional. a high school kid with enormous physical gifts and a reputation that had already started to grow before anyone outside Ohio fully understood what was coming. Oakley saw it coming. He took LeBron under his wing during that period. He helped prepare him for what professional basketball actually felt like. Not the highlight version, not the marketing version, but the physical reality of it. The contact, the fatigue. The mental strain of playing against men who had been doing this for years and who would not move gently out of the way just because a teenager had talent. Oakley shielded LeBron during that period. He controlled the environment around him. He made sure that LeBron was not thrown into physical matchups against older professionals before he was ready to handle them. This was not coddling. This was preparation. There is a difference between protecting someone from difficulty and protecting them from damage they are not yet equipped to absorb. Oakley knew the difference because he had spent his entire career understanding it. He had watched what happened when young players got broken too early by situations they were not built for yet. He was not going to let that happen to LeBron. The most famous story from that period involves a private pickup run in Chicago. Oakley introduced LeBron to his idol, Michael Jordan. He facilitated that connection. He brought two generations of greatness together and made sure the moment happened correctly, in the right setting, with the right energy. That speaks to Oakley's understanding of what young greatness needed. Not just physical preparation, but the right relationships, the right exposure, the right environment to grow. Years later, when critics attacked LeBron's legacy over his championship record, Oakley defended him. He made the argument clearly. LeBron James elevated every single roster he ever joined. He made his teams better. He made individual players around him better. He sustained a level of performance across multiple decades that almost no player in history had ever managed. That kind of consistency, combined with that kind of impact on his teammates and franchises, placed LeBron on Oakley's personal Mount Rushmore of basketball greatness. And Oakley put him there ahead of Magic Johnson. That is a significant statement. Magic Johnson is one of the most beloved and celebrated players in NBA history. He won 5 championships. He changed the way people thought about point guard play. He was brilliant and spectacular, and his impact on the game was enormous. Oakley still ranked LeBron above him, because in Oakley's code, the ability to elevate those around you, to carry a franchise through seasons of pressure and still perform at the highest level, was worth more than the beauty of the individual game. What Oakley saw in LeBron before the world fully had him was not just physical talent. It was the capacity to carry weight, to be the person a team depended on, and to actually meet that dependence. To stay consistent when consistency was the hardest thing to maintain. To grow across eras without losing what made him special. LeBron earned Oakley's respect first as a young player willing to be guided, and then as a professional who validated everything Oakley had seen in him before he was old enough to vote. Number 1. Michael Jordan. This one is different. Every player on this list earned Oakley's respect, but Michael Jordan did not just earn it. He became the definition of it. He became the standard by which Oakley measured everything else. When Oakley respected Kobe, it was because Kobe reminded him of Jordan. When Oakley respected LeBron, it was because LeBron could carry weight the way Jordan carried it. Jordan was not just on the list. Jordan was the reference point for the entire list. The relationship began when both men were Chicago Bulls. From 1985 to 1988, Oakley was Jordan's on-court protector, his shield, his physical deterrent against the brutal Eastern Conference defenses of that era. Oakley took pride in that role, not because it was glamorous, because it was not. He was not the one making the highlights. He was not the one getting the magazine covers. He was the one making sure the man making the highlights could keep making them without being destroyed by someone bigger and meaner, trying to slow him down. That is a specific kind of selflessness. And Oakley did not do it reluctantly. He did it because he believed in what Jordan was doing. He believed in the standard Jordan held himself to every single night. He saw up close what Jordan's work ethic looked like before the world understood it, before the championships, before the legacy was fully written. Oakley was in the room when Jordan was still becoming Jordan. And what he saw was something he had never seen before, and would not see replicated by many players after. Jordan's drive was absolute. It was not conditional on how the game was going. It was not dependent on whether the team was winning. It was not affected by whether the defense was treating him fairly or trying to hurt him. Jordan attacked. Every possession, every quarter, every game. He accepted physical punishment and then attacked again. He did not complain about it to the officials. He did not shrink from it in the fourth quarter. He absorbed it and turned it into fuel. For Charles Oakley, a man who had built his entire career on the premise that toughness was non-negotiable, watching Jordan take contact and keep attacking was the most validating thing imaginable. It proved that talent and toughness were not opposites. They could exist at the highest level in the same person. Jordan was the proof. The relationship they built during those 3 years together in Chicago went far beyond basketball. It became a friendship built on shared experience, on the unique kind of trust that develops when one man knows another man has his back in the most physical sense. Oakley protected Jordan from opponents who wanted to end his night early. Jordan knew that, and that knowledge created a bond that did not fade when they stopped being teammates. How strong was that bond? When Oakley wrote his memoir, called The Last Enforcer, Michael Jordan wrote the foreword. That alone is not the remarkable part. The remarkable part is that Jordan wrote it without reading the book first. He did not ask to review the chapters. He did not send a team of lawyers to fact-check the manuscript. He did not require assurances about how he was portrayed. He simply trusted Oakley completely and wrote the foreword on the strength of their relationship alone. Think about what that means for a man in Jordan's position. A man that famous, that careful about his image, that precise about how his legacy is presented, trusted Charles Oakley so fully that he committed to supporting his story without needing to know what the story said. That is not a business decision. That is a declaration of loyalty that goes deeper than most relationships most people have in their entire lives. It is the kind of trust that only forms between two people who have been through something real together, who have stood beside each other in rooms where things were difficult and never looked the other way. Jordan trusted Oakley because Oakley had never once given him a reason not to, and Oakley respected Jordan for the same quality Jordan displayed in that trust: the absolute commitment to the relationship, the willingness to bet everything on a person you believe in. Oakley respected Jordan's scoring efficiency. He respected the way Jordan moved without the ball, the way he found angles other players could not see, the way he made decisions in the final seconds that most players would not make in a casual practice. He respected the work ethic, the legendary hours Jordan put into his craft long before most of his teammates arrived in the gym. He respected the fact that Jordan never pointed at someone else when a game was lost. He never made it about a bad call or a teammate's mistake or the conditions of the floor. He owned his performances, every single one. That kind of personal accountability was something Oakley understood in his bones, because he had lived by it his entire career. But most of all, he respected the consistency. Jordan was who he was every single time he stepped on the floor. There was no down game. There was no night when he decided it was acceptable to coast. Every night was the night. That is Charles Oakley's code elevated to its highest expression. Do not give less than everything. Do not accept soft. Do not back down. Do not settle for what is comfortable when what is required is difficult. Be the same player in the fourth quarter that you were in the first. Be the same professional on Tuesday in December that you're in Game 7 in June. Michael Jordan was all of that. From the first moment Oakley saw it up close, he recognized it. And he spent the rest of his life using Jordan as the benchmark against which every other great player was measured. That is why Jordan sits at the top. Not because he was the most famous, not because he had the most rings, not because the world agreed on it, but because Charles Oakley, a man who respected almost no one, who criticized legends and challenged icons, and built his entire identity around the refusal to be impressed, saw Jordan play and decided that this was what greatness was supposed to look like. 7 players, 7 different stories, 7 different reasons Oakley's code gave its approval, and every single one of them earned it a different way. That is the beauty of what Oakley built with his standards. He was not looking for one type of player. He was not looking for one type of character. He was looking for the quality underneath the type, the core thing that made someone worth trusting when the season was on the line, and the easy path was available, and a lesser person would have taken it. Tim McCormick, who proved that courage did not require a spotlight. You did not have to be famous to earn real respect. You only had to stand your ground when standing was hard. Kevin Durant, who proved that modern players could still understand the game the right way. That role, discipline, and system intelligence were not relics of the past. They were still the foundation of winning. Kobe Bryant, who proved that an opponent could earn respect through obsession, that competing with everything you had every night against every opponent in every situation was its own kind of proof. Tracy McGrady, who proved that accepting guidance was not weakness. That listening to veterans and allowing yourself to be shaped by harder hands was how young talent survived and grew. Vince Carter, who proved that gifts had to be used with aggression to matter. that settling for comfort was a betrayal of potential. That attack was always the right answer. LeBron James, who proved that greatness could cross eras and carry weight across decades, that the player who made everyone around him better was the player who left the deepest mark. And Michael Jordan, who proved all of it at once, at the highest level, for the longest time, without making any of it look like work, even when it cost everything he had. Oakley's list matters because it was never about popularity. It was never about championships on their own, or scoring titles on their own, or the things the world agreed were important. It was about who could enter Oakley's world, meet his standard, and not fold when the pressure came. It was about who could be trusted when trust meant everything. It was about who would still be standing in the hard moments. Not just the famous moments, the hard ones. That is a short list. It always was, because real respect was never meant to be easy to earn. The harder it was to earn, the more it meant when you had it. And in Charles Oakley's world, having it meant something that no trophy and no headline could ever replace. And if you had Charles Oakley's respect, you had passed one of the hardest tests basketball ever invented.